After lunch, Mr. E gave the class free time. He gave them a lot of free time. Some students read, some drew pictures, some of them wrote, some of them walked around the classroom, some of them even talked, something Mrs. Brisbane would not have allowed. For her, free time meant quiet time. Only one of them talked to me. That was Phoebe. "Humphrey, I brought you a piece of apple," she said. This time I remembered. "That's unsqueakably nice of you," I replied. I was very honored that forgetful Phoebe had remembered me. Phoebe leaned down close to my cage, so I was almost nose to nose with her. "But what I can't remember is what I did with my daisy watch," she said. She looked around to see if anyone was listening. No one was, not even Og, who was swimming in the water side of his tank. "My parents gave it to me before they deployed," she said. "They're both in the military, and I miss them a lot. They weren't supposed to be gone at the same time, but then they had to be." So that's why Phoebe was living with her grandmother. "I just have to find it. I wouldn't want my mom and dad to know I lost it," she said. "Yes, yes, yes," I told her. "You have to try very hard." I hoped that, somehow, Phoebe understood me. Phoebe sighed. "I think about my mom and dad all the time. I guess that's why I don't remember things very well. Mrs. Brisbane was sending reminders home with me every night and calling my grandma when something important was coming up," she explained. "Mr. E doesn't do that." Then she grinned. "Of course, he doesn't give us real homework and tests." "I noticed," I told her. "Would it be okay if I looked in your cage?" Phoebe asked. "I was thinking maybe it fell off while I was cleaning it." "Of course, Phoebe, please look," I replied. To speak the truth, I wasn't sure it was in my cage because I was sure it wasn't in my cage because I know every hiding place there is. But I thought it was a good idea to look, and awfully nice of her to ask first. After all, my cage is my home, and as much as I like humans, I don't want them sticking their hands inside all the time. Phoebe opened the cage door and poked all around. She was doing a good job of looking. I was afraid she'd find my notebook hidden behind my mirror. Luckily, she didn't. "I guess it's not there," she said at last. "I was wishing that you had found it and saved it for me, Humphrey." I wished her wish had come true. After free time, Mr. E said something that curled my toes and wiggled my whiskers. "Folks, it's almost Halloween. While we have the art supplies out, why don't we decorate the room?" "Eek!" I squeaked. All I could think of was the leering orange pumpkin someone put close to my cage last year. Boing, 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 Og sounded as alarmed as I was. But my friends were happy and excited about Halloween. "Let's give our decorations some pizzazz. We want the ghastliest ghosts, the goriest goblins, the creepiest creeps, and the weirdest witches." Mr. E's red hair seemed to shine a little brighter. I felt a shiver and a quiver. "Let's make it the most haunted Halloween ever," he added. I couldn't look. I dashed into my sleeping house, but I didn't sleep a wink. I couldn't stop thinking about Phoebe. Finally, I understood why she was so forgetful, but I didn't have a clue about how to help her. Also, there were some eerie sounds going on in the classroom. I heard a ghostly ooh, then a ghastly laugh, like a witch, and a fur-raising howl. Halloween was turning into Halloween! I finally had to take a peek outside. Luckily, I didn't see any ghosts or goblins, just my friends drawing, coloring, cutting paper. So I went back into my sleeping house again, and this time I took a nap. Later in the afternoon, Mr. E announced that he had a letter from Mrs. Brisbane. I dashed out of my sleeping hut and climbed high in my cage so I could see and hear everything. "Pay attention now, Og," I told my froggy friend. "There may be clues." Og hopped up on a rock and was very quiet. "Dear class, I hope you are all doing well," Mr. E read. "I miss you all, but everyone here is very nice, and they say I'm performing very well. Please be kind to your substitute teacher and to one another. Fondly, Mrs. Brisbane." My friends all applauded when Mr. E was finished. "Did you hear that?" I asked Og. "She must be learning to dance. She said she's performing and she's up on her feet." Og didn't know anything about ballet, and it was hard to explain to him. After school, when the classroom was empty except for Og and me, I took out my notebook and looked at my list of clues. I took my little pencil and added 2 more. Clue number 6. Mrs. Brisbane is on her feet and in a whirl. Clue number 7. She is performing very well. Mrs. Brisbane definitely must be at ballet school. I had plenty of clues, but they didn't help me understand why Mrs. Brisbane would leave the class to learn ballet, especially with all the problems my friends were having. And I didn't know how one small hamster, me, could solve their problems all by myself. I had helped Kelsey. She hadn't bumped into anyone all week, and I'd heard her telling her friends about ballet class. On the other paw, Hurry Up Harry seemed to have forgotten everything Mrs. Brisbane had taught him about getting back to class on time. Tell the truth, Thomas was stretching the truth farther and farther every day and losing friends. And even though I knew why forgetful Phoebe was so forgetful, I couldn't think of what to do about it. It was still a mystery to me why Mr. E didn't do a little more teaching. After all, he was a teacher. He needed help too. It was quiet in the room now, so quiet I could hear the big clock on the wall tick away the seconds. Tick, 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 tick. I wish the clock would stop, 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 because it reminded me of Phoebe's watch. Ugh, I sure wish I could find Phoebe's watch, I squeaked to my friend. Suddenly, Og wasn't quiet anymore. Boing, 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 he twagged. You're right, I said. I should find it. Boing, I must find it. Boing, boing, I will find it. I stomped my paw. Boing, boing, boing. Og splashed around in his water. Now I just had to figure out how to do it. Humphrey's Detectionary. One mystery, like what happened to your teacher, can lead to another mystery, like why the substitute teacher isn't really teaching. We'll pick it up with Chapter 10 tomorrow.